There's been a lot of reasons why investors have been talking about AMD stock. On the one hand, AMD is experiencing much better revenue in the data center GPU business than they initially expected, much better than they initially expected coming into 2024. On the other side of the equation, there's segments in its business, especially the gaming segment, that's declining massively year over year. So it's driving a two-sided business for AMD. Investors are talking about AMD impressed with its performance in the data center GPU market and also comparing it to Nvidia and saying, wow, they're so far behind. So let's take a deeper dive into AMD here and understand why so many investors are talking about this interesting semiconductor company.
I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.
So as I highlighted in the introduction of the video, you can see AMD increasing their expectations in the data center GPU market. They now expect over $5 billion in revenue in this market in 2024. That's up from 4.5 billion that they guided in July and what they guided prior to the beginning of the year of 2 billion. So they initially said they expected 2 billion in revenue in the data center GPU market in 2024. And then in July, they updated that guidance to 4.5 billion. And they now updated that guidance again in late October to 5 billion. So it just keeps getting better and better and better for AMD in the data center GPU market. Of course, if you compare that to Nvidia, Nvidia generated roughly $20 billion in the data center GPU market in their latest quarter. AMD is talking about 5 billion for the year. So you can start to understand the big gap between AMD and Nvidia in the data center GPU market. On the other side of the business, desktop channel sales grew by a significant double-digit percentage, which was led by the launch of their Ryzen 9000 series processors that deliver productivity, gaming, and content creation performance. The Ryzen AI 300 series sales laptops ramped significantly from the prior quarter as several of its partners, including Acer, HP, and Lenovo, announced new consumer and commercial notebooks with leadership, compute, and AI performance. Now, the PC market declined year over year in the latest quarter, so AMD gained market share to be sure. But also, the market overall is likely to accelerate from here on out. Windows is ending support for its previous generation, Windows 10, and so that's going to drive some replacement of those older generation Windows PCs. Also, there was significant PC sales in 2020 and 2021, right when the pandemic entered into the lockdown stages and people had to work from home and learn from home. And so that created significant demand for computers. Those computers are getting long in the tooth now. 4 or 5-year-old computers for work are older generation, and it's going to start slowing you down in your productivity if you're still using those computers from back then. So starting in the second half of 2024, we were expecting a increase in PC sales. We got a surprising number in the latest quarter that was a decrease. But that's inevitable. People need to replace these computers, and AMD is in a great position to benefit from that. And early demonstrations showed that as they gained market share in the latest quarter. So AMD saying we expect to have more than 100 Ryzen AI Pro commercial platforms in the market next year, positioning us well for market share gains as businesses refresh the hundreds of millions of Windows 10 PCs that will no longer receive Microsoft technical support starting in 2025. So that's part of that big replacement cycle in personal computers that's going to be, in my opinion, could be one of the biggest replacement cycles in this industry's history. Sony announced that the PS5 Pro, with significant increases in graphics and ray tracing performance and AI-driven upscaling will feature a new AMD semi-custom SoC that extends their multi-generational partnership. Of course, this is the segment that's been in big decline for AMD. In the latest quarter, revenue declined by 69% year over year. And it's primarily because of the Microsoft Xbox gaming console and the Sony PlayStation 5 gaming console, which are now several years old and people are not buying them in the quantities that they were when they first came out. So the PS5 Pro, which is a version of the PS5, recently came out, and that's going to drive some incremental demand, but nowhere near the kind of demand these products generate when they first come out. So AMD will hope to continue this relationship with Sony and Microsoft so that when the next generation of these consoles are introduced, AMD will be in position to get that big boost in the first year or two, or maybe three, of sales of these next generation gaming consoles. This is a lumpy business that every generation of release of these consoles, AMD gets a big boost, and then it kind of slows down until the next generation console is announced. So the embedded segment is another one that's struggling for AMD. Third quarter revenue decreased by 25%. Embedded demand continues recovering, but gradually, and it's led by strength in the test and emulation, offset by softness in the industrial market. So two-sided business for AMD, right? The PC market, the PC segment doing well, and of course the data center segment absolutely thriving and prospering. But the gaming segment, huge declines in revenue, and the embedded segment still struggling to recover. So it's got this kind of big positive side of the business and then a big negative side of the business, and that's really slowed down AMD compared to Nvidia, which is experiencing growth in every part of its business. Every segment is thriving, and of course the data center segment is absolutely soaring for Nvidia. And look, they say there's nearly insatiable demand for more computing power. And that's what AMD facilitates, right? More computing power, whether it's in gaming consoles, whether it's in personal computers or laptops, or in the data center, AMD facilitates increasing computing power. And so long as there's continued increase in computing power, AMD is in a good position to benefit from that. It might not be first place in benefiting from that. That will go to Nvidia, but even if it's in the top 3, top 5 in that category, which I think it is, it will continue to deliver solid shareholder gains. Now, in the data center segment alone, AMD expects the AI accelerator total addressable market will grow at more than 60% annually to $500 billion by 2028. And so if you take the estimates of the most recent quarter, AMD had roughly 5 to 10% market share in this category. If you give them 10% market share in this category in 2028, that would be $50 billion annual revenue for AMD just from this segment alone. Now that's optimistic, but that can be incredible. Especially now, if you look at Nvidia, which is rumored to have 80% market share in this category, that could mean Nvidia's revenue just in this segment alone would reach $400 billion in 2028 if those forecasts prove correct. Now that's highly uncertain, but just to get an idea, some back of the envelope math there as to the sheer magnitude of that market and why so many investors are interested and why so many investors are talking about AMD stock. Hey everyone, I'm excited to announce that my book is finally available for sale. I've been working on it for more than a year now, so I'm really excited to finally share this with you now. It goes through my framework for evaluating stocks. Some of you often ask why I like this stock or why I like the other stock, and this framework provides you the things that I look at when I'm evaluating stocks. I've added the link in the description below.